Hi guys, hello. If you can hear me, you can open your mic and clap. If you're hearing me clearly, just open your mic and clap. All right, Joseph, I didn't hear the clap, but thanks. Anybody else hearing me? I just want to make sure before we begin that you can hear me clearly. All right, thanks. All right, so guys, I don't want to refer to you as the names that you have here in Zoom, because, for example, Strawberry Readers Club, I'm not sure that's what you go by, if that's on your birth certificate, but adjust it if needs be, because I will be referring to you guys as often as possible. And you can type in the chat if you can see my screen. I just want to be clear of that before we begin. No one sees my screen? All right, thank you so much. Okay, so hi everybody, good afternoon. Welcome to CAPE Unit 1, Literatures in English. We just did a poll about how you guys feel regarding the exam. I won't share it just yet, but I just want to say it's not hard. It's easier said than done, but it is not hard. So without further ado, let's get into it, all right? Hold on. Sorry. Why does it go so fast? Okay, hold on. This is too fast. No. Sorry, guys, give me a minute. Yeah. Okay, so these are our objectives today and overall, because I'm pretty sure that after Unit 1 was so exciting and fun, you guys are definitely going to do Unit 2. So let's talk about these things. I need a reader. Joseph came in pretty early. Joseph, would you like to read the first heading right here, please? Hello? Yeah, you can just read from identify and finish at this, right in this first column.
Identify what is required. What are the objectives in the syllabus? What to do? What do you need to know? And why are you even doing this?
Okay, so first and foremost, guys, we want to, thanks Joseph, by the way. We want to identify what is required, because if we don't know what is required, we won't know what to do. So based on everything that's in the syllabus, I'm pretty sure you guys have read it or have seen it or have at least heard something about it. You should know what the objectives are, what you're required to do as a student, right? What do you need to know? Basically, a lot of persons will emphasize that in literatures in English, you need to know a lot. And while that might be true to some extent, it's easier or better, I should say, to work smarter and not necessarily harder, because literature is literally fun. Then finally, why are you even doing this? What's the objective here? Don't forget the fact that you're doing this for a reason. So whether it is to matriculate to university or to grade 13, or you're doing it as a qualification or prerequisite for something else, remember the goal at hand. Remember what is there. All right. Then let's talk about creating a strategy. Now, a lot of persons will plan and a lot of persons will have goals and a lot of persons will wish or want the pass, but it doesn't mean that you can get it by just wishing or dreaming for it. Let's welcome Ricardo. I just wanted to add him in. Sorry about that. So in creating a strategy, what are you gonna do? So firstly, you don't know literatures in English when it comes on to CAPE. CAPE is so advanced, it's completely different from CSEC literatures in English, right? And you can see that based on the text that you have been assigned to read. So in creating a strategy, you want to talk to persons who would have already achieved what you want, persons who have actually passed, and not just persons who have passed through, because you don't want, well, if what you are required to do is pass, or what your goal is to pass, I mean, of course, talk to somebody that just passed. But if you really and truly don't want to do anything, you're just doing it because you have to, I mean, talk to somebody who passed through it just like you are doing. So it all depends on, firstly, what is required, what's the goal, and then from there you can create a strategy. Now, let's talk about the second point here, which says don't just use past papers. A lot of persons emphasize the use of it. And I noticed that some people will ask about it first. But here's the deal, especially when it comes on to literatures in English. It's not just the past papers that help you. It's knowing about the authors, it's knowing about their background, and you might see where some of your teachers will include some of that information. It's very important for you to know why the author wrote what and what were they going through, what's the context behind all of this, and what are the social issues that it actually attacks. So you want to be able to have an understanding of not just what, or just find the past papers and then do the past papers, but you want to have extra textual information. You want to be able to see a biography or something, just not just past papers. And you'll hear me talk more about other resources you can use from the council, other resources that they provide, and some of them might just be in the syllabus itself. Other resources that you might not have noticed. Here's one, for example, reports from teachers. So every year, whether you know it or not, every year after the papers are marked, there's a report that's given from the persons who marked the papers. They actually detail what students did right and what students did wrong. And that is all the way to the end of the syllabus. And in most cases, it is just on a PDF file somewhere on Google. So you can search for that as well. So in addition to past papers, reports from teachers do help, because then you can identify what persons in the past did wrong and you can correct those errors in your own papers. Then you see here where I say your teacher is here for a reason. Don't just think that your teacher is here to give you the information in class and all of that. A lot of persons may or may not, because most people don't. A lot of persons would have written essays and given their teachers to mark outside of class or outside of an assignment. That's a good thing, because then you have practice. And don't worry about it, guys. Even if you haven't done any of this yet, trust me, you don't need to necessarily, but this is something that can actually help you or propel your grade. Let's go to the next one, do the work. So like I said before, depending on what you really want to achieve at the end of your examination period is how hard you're going to work. So a lot of persons, they might just do part of an assignment. They didn't even finish their IA. But essentially, you have to put in the work if you want to reap the fruits of those seeds. So did you actually read the book? Can you guys raise your hands if you read all the text that you were assigned? And it's okay if you did or did not. Trust me. For example, Taming of the Shrew, I didn't read that. I did not. And I did pass Literatures in English Unit 1. I did. Actually did a pretty great job. So raise your hand or put it in the chat if you did not read any of the text. I probably never read a couple more too. I don't think I read the other Shakespeare book for Unit 2. Personally, I'm not a fan of Shakespeare. I didn't read all. Okay, thanks, Joseph. And your participation does help, guys, because then I can understand where you are and I can help you as much as possible. So, all right, you didn't read all. That's completely okay, trust me. Coming from me who actually passed the exams, it's okay if you didn't read all. I know your exam is in, what, 2 weeks? It's next week, isn't it? Like, not next week, but the week after. Guys, all right, but let's get into it. Do the work. Do you know the terms? So there's a glossary of literary terms I have. I will share some of them with you, and you'll need this specifically for unit 1. No, you'll need it specifically for paper 1. So paper 1 requires that you think very critically, and they'll bring up some words that you might not know. Some words like I don't even know what I'm thinking about now. Let's say they bring up the word apostrophe. Does everybody know what an apostrophe is? Like in terms of the figure of speech. They'll bring up some words in paper 1 that you will not have any idea what they're talking about. And then they'll make it seem like, okay, you were taught this. Some stuff like, for example, caesura and clique and characterization, you probably know, denotation, dialect. They'll ask you if this is an epigram. They'll ask you some of those stuff. And further down, we'll talk about the importance of paper 1. But yeah, basically, let's move on. This keeps going too fast. All right, so right here, some guy said in this quote, part-time effort really does yield part-time results. I want you guys to know that showing up is 50%. If you literally go into the exam, having already done your IA, you literally get 50%. And answering one question is 30%. Interestingly, if you feel nervous and you just talk about one thing, you might just scrape 30%. And doing the work guarantees a pass. Like I mentioned before, if you do the work, you'll actually reap the benefits of it. So let's go to the next one. How can this session help you? So first, here's why we are here. We're here to understand what is required of us. We're not here to give a cheat sheet, right? What you're gonna do in this session is make notes of what you have never heard before. So your teacher might not have mentioned something, and you may not have heard them from past students, but make notes of it so you can remember. And finally, I will either confirm what your teachers have said or clarify misconceptions you would have made about the subject or the exam. No, I think the next one is this one. Hold on. Yeah, it's this one. No, here are some points. Literature is like math. It's fun. You won't fail this exam. You need to read enough extra textual information. Sorry about that. V should be X. And you shouldn't be nervous. Don't be nervous. And if you feel nervous, drink some water and calm down. All right? So let's go here. So hi guys, my name is Aniska. Welcome. That's pretty much it. I want to ask you guys if you have any questions, but that's pretty much it. Anything, guys? Any questions? You can type it in the chat. Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, so let's talk about paper 2 first, because paper 2 is what you have first. So let's talk about it. Want to write original statements or inspiring quotes? That's really how we begin when it comes on to paper 2, right? Paper 2 consists of your introduction, your body paragraph, and your conclusion. let me tell you a little bit about, I'm sorry for the screen jumping, let's go. Let me tell you a little bit about the introduction, right? So what you want to do is have a thesis. You want to explain and give examples. You want to link whatever you're saying to the question. So let's say you get a question about purple hibiscus. Anyone in here read purple hibiscus or discussed it in their class before? Can raise your hand or put it in the chat, yes or no. Okay, perfect. All right, Joseph, this one we're gonna talk to Kimoy about this one. Kimoy, Chanel, and Cleon. All right, perfect. I'm sure you guys like the book because it's a really interesting book. So when we're talking about purple hibiscus now, let's say they give you a question about the perspective of the feminist, right? What you want to do is whatever introduction you're going to have, whatever body you're going to have, whatever essay you're going to have, you want to make sure that your essay is captivating, and whatever you're doing has a thesis. You need to have a position, and you need to be able to link everything in the essay to the position. Firstly, what you guys have to understand is you are called or charged to write an advanced essay. So this is literally, I think Cape is from Oxford University. This is literally you thinking critically higher than anybody else. Everyone that did not do Cape Literatures in English, your essay is proving why they couldn't do it. It's because you can think critically. It's because you can assess things differently. It's because you're analytical. So that's why you're here. You can literally read a book and you can outline everything about the author, about its link to a social issue. You have next level thinking as a literature student. And it's not because, I mean, literatures in English requires it to be next level. It's because you would have decided to do the subject. Therefore, you have garnered that information, or you have a desire to have that information, or to have that skill of thinking critically. So when you're writing your essays, you need to make sure that you are thinking about it critically. You're not just thinking about it on the face. It's not just, oh, the cover of the book has a flower because the name of the book is Purple Hibiscus. You don't want to do that. You want to say the cover has the color purple, which links to the theme and the title. You want to include all of that. You have to have all of that in there, right? You have to be very in-depth. So let's talk a little bit about the thesis here. You can say, write a captivating thesis. You want to make sure that you catch whoever is reading, anybody, any teacher that picks up your essay must feel, goosebumps must come upon them when they read. They must be able, you know what a lot of teachers do? A lot of teachers, because they either mark, like, for example, they will mark module 1, another teacher marks module 2. That's how they do it. A lot of times it will be so boring that they stop. They probably go eat them dinner and then come back to mark, because they mark on computers. You don't want to do that. You want, when they read, them literally so captivated by your reading that they don't put it down. You want your essay supposed to be as good as Purple Hibiscus. That's what you want. Right, Kimoy? You want to be able to read, to write as much as, you know, or as deep as Chimamanda. That's really what we want. It's really what they want. All right. So when you have your thesis, in your essay, you want to reference your thesis. You want to be able to go back to it. You want to explain and give examples in each body paragraph, and you want to link everything that you are saying to the question. You must always remember what the question is and answer the question. Don't go all around the world talking about Nsuka University. No bother with it. Just try to link it to the question as much as possible. All right, next. All right, so here are some small ways that you can actually obtain marks. So I don't know if some of you would have known, but for the book title, when you're talking about the title of the book, always have it in initial caps and underline it. Bring a ruler in the exam if you have to. So you want to underline it because that's what you're talking about. You'll get more marks for this because this is something critical too that a lot of persons miss. Always have the book title in initial caps and underline. For the author, you must know the author, and it will help you to understand the text. So have a background of the author. You might not include it in your essay, but you see, for example, let's use Chairman of the Shoe, for example. If you knew when Shakespeare specifically wrote this play, rather, and why he wrote the play, then you would understand better why the play is the way it is. Maybe women in that time, that part of the Jacobean era, were really like that. Some of them were submissive and some weren't. So if you know that, then you can recall that, you can even add it to your introduction, and you can just attack a question as easy as possible. Then you want transitional words or phrases. A lot of you might have included these in your essays when you were doing them as practice in class, but be sure that you have those transitional words because then it will make your essay flow easier. Proofread it. Now, I know time is probably short and you don't have time to read over, but really and truly, there have been times when people notice their grammatical errors after they've reread their essay at least twice. Just go through it. You don't have to sit down and read it through, thoroughly, because you might not have the time to do that. But make sure that you proofread it because you might just write grammatically incorrect statements or phrases when you're writing fast. Let's say, for example, you decided that you wanted to write on module 1, and you took a little bit more time than was suggested, and you had to rush through module 2. I mean, you wrote on those poems and you were good with it and everything. But then module 3 now, like time run out, you have like 30 minutes left, so you just have to like flash through. What you don't want to do is miss the mistakes that you've made. So be sure to proofread. And then for the conclusion, never add anything new. When you're concluding, you don't need to add anything new because you're just rewriting what you've already said. And I don't mean this in any way, guys, but listen carefully. You don't want to say the same words like all the time. You don't have to say, okay, so in, I think it's Wilfred Owens, in Wilfred Owen's poems, he said this and he said that, and you just keep saying said. Use words like outlined and identified and magnified and illuminate. Use up your verbs, man, and make it seem like your vocabulary bigger, just use up your vocabulary. Don't just leave it to one word. Said, did, convey. You want to convey, depicted, highlighted. You want to use them words there. And then when you're saying those verbs too, you want to add adjectives or adverbs. So you want to say, he beautifully highlighted, or he, he effectively demonstrates. Yeah, you want to use those types of phrases when you're talking about it. Why is this going so fast? All right, next one. For the introduction now. I know we're going back, but let's go in depth with the introduction. So you need a relevant attention getter first and foremost. A relevant attention getter, a lot of persons like to use quotes. If you use a generic quote, I'd already be bored. So you want to use some facts. You see, if you all know something about Wilfred Owen and something from a long time, like you use a year, like if you all use a year, which student knows this? Like, you don't use a year when you're born. No, don't use that, because if it doesn't link to the question, it really should not happen. But let's say, for example, purple hibiscus. So you want to say, in the year whatever happened, and the feminist movement, or Rosa Parks got up, civil rights movement. You want to use you can use a date. That will really wow them, because they'll probably wonder, why or how did you remember this, or how can you link this to the question? As long as it can be linked to the question, please. You can use a date because that's something that's uncommon. You can also use a famous, well, not famous, not too famous, a quote from somebody that's not a president or, you know, a writer or somebody like that. Use a quote from like a painter, a famous painter, or like a boxer or a footballer. Use something Jamaican. I mean, you don't have to. But all I'm saying is with your attention getter, be different, right? So yeah, like I said, you expect them to mark a boring paper, don't have a boring paper. That's boring, right? And then you're just gonna be average. I mean, who wants to be average? At this point, you really don't want to be, but don't do that. Have something that's juicy, something that says, wow, I really would love to read this essay. You don't want the marker to have any breaks between reading your essay, because the more you're captivated, the more they'll want to read. Then the writer's name and title. We discussed the title already, but be sure in your introduction to add the writer's name. You need that in the introduction. You're introducing the text. You want to be able to state what. Don't do that in the body. Before you start talking about it, you state what it is that you're talking about or what you'll make reference to, which novel, which play, etc. Right? Then your position in the thesis. You must have a position. You have to pick a side, whether yes, no. If you're on the fence, that's going to take a, because then you're going to have to prove why you are on the fence and why you are not on a side, right? So, I mean, to me, it takes a little bit more work, but if it works for you, then it works for you. So that's for the introduction. Then we go into this. This is the body, but I just want somebody to read this for me, please. Not Joseph. Anybody else? Can you read this for me, please? Chanel, would you care to read this, please?
On the Prose module, candidates are very keen to discuss theme, plot, and characterization, but often ignore the other generic features, such as narrative technique. In both poetry and prose, candidates need to understand not just the terms associated with the generic features, but the ways in which writers manipulate the different features of each genre to achieve artistic effect. The ability to explain how artistic choices reinforce an author's view on a particular issue is an important skill for candidates to learn. Listing the features of the genre is not sufficient. In the prose genre, some candidates are merely narrating the story or relevant sections of the story instead of producing analytical essays that engage with the stimulus provided. In all genres, candidates have expanded their range of knowledge of extra-textual information, contextual, biographical, and critical, and have accordingly improved their performance on the knowledge profile. However, candidates must be encouraged to integrate extra-textual information appropriately and relevantly.
Thank you, Chanel. Okay, so this is an example of a report that was done by the persons who were marking, right? I think this was from 2010's exam to 2011. So they were kind of contrasting both exams. They were really just highlighting the differences between the exams. So as you can see here, that the candidates in the most recent exams were keen to discuss the theme, plot, and characterization, but other generic features they weren't keen to discuss, right? Other narrative techniques that you really need to know. Persons really didn't get into that, right? And then the candidates, they didn't understand the terms and the generic features. So they understood the terms, but not the features associated with the terms. And you need to understand that to achieve artistic effect. Then here, down here in the second paragraph, you can see clearly that some persons, all they do is just retell the story. No, that's not what you do in an advanced exam of literature in English. Like I was saying, extra textual information is completely important. But it's not just important to have, but important, like the last sentence says, to integrate it appropriately and relevantly. So don't just come and talk about what you heard of Chimamanda Adichie or what you heard of Shakespeare, and it has nothing to do with the question. So let's say the question is talking about the comedic effect of this, and you start talking about how many people died in that year. That has nothing to do with it. So yes, understand extra-textual information, but at the same time, you need to know how to input it appropriately and relevantly. All right. So in the body, you need topic sentences which are directly related to the thesis. And you need 3 clear points that are logically ordered. You need to fully develop your paragraphs with accurate evidence, and you need a clincher sentence at the end of each body paragraph. So not only do you need to open the body paragraph relevantly and make it related to the thesis, but you actually want to close it properly. So you want to bring it back to the thesis. For example, if you're talking about, let's do the feminist perspective again of purple hibiscus. So let's say you're going to say, Adichie outlines feminist perspective of Nigeria using irony, using characterization, and maybe allusion, for example, right? And then when you're talking about the irony, you start by saying, Chimamanda Adichie underscores the benefit. Chimamanda Adichie underscores the benefit of the feminist perspective through her use of irony. In Purple Hibiscus. Give me a second, guys. Sorry, guys. Yeah. So I was saying she underscores the benefits of the feminist perspective, and this is just an example, through irony in Purple Hibiscus. So that's the topic sentence. That's where you start, right? Then you want to have the points that are linked to that topic sentence. Now, this is just one paragraph. You want to have the points that are linked to that topic sentence. No, so you're highlighting the first point by saying, okay, utilizing so many women versus the men, stuff like that. That's the first point. And then you use an example where maybe their mother went to the market or something like that. All I'm saying is, guys, the topic sentence must start the paragraph, right? And it must be linked to the thesis. And then when you're finishing, you want to say, utilizing these ways, Adichie outlines, whatever. You finish it, you wrap it up, basically. Do you guys understand? Just type in the chat, yes or no. All right, Joseph, thank you. So basically, all I'm saying, guys, is you need to have extra textual information, and you need to have it appropriately in your essays, right? Also, don't just know plot, theme, characterization, no more, right? All right, so let's go to the next slide. So now we're gonna talk about grading ourselves. Now, I just want to do this as a little icebreaker, but how would you guys grade yourselves? Based on what you know now, give yourself a grade. Give yourself a grade based on what you know now for the exam. You can type it in the chat. By the way, give yourself a grade out of 100. Out of 100. Wow, okay. Anybody else? Kimar, what's the grade you'd give yourself? Kimar, Zoe? All right, Zoe. Cleon, Joe Tasha. Based on what we've said so far, what's the grade? Oh, it's not. Okay, that's fine, Kimoy. So whether you're at 5 or 85, teachers are supposed to grade hard. That's what they're there to do. You see, by expanding your elastic limit, they're able to give you a reason to continue. I mean, you guys don't want to fail. So if your teachers keep failing you, you think you think that okay, you're not good at it, but in actuality, by marking so hard, they're making sure that you will go into the exam and you'll do your best. If the marked easy, you think that the teacher is a piece of cake, you probably wouldn't study. So now you're putting in more work because you think that it's hard, but it's not hard. Trust me. All right. So thanks for the grade, everybody. So based on that, I can't believe Kimoy said 5, but based on Kimoy's 5 and Joseph's 84%, what I'm definitely gonna say is you guys are no different. Here's why. So if Unit 1 is your first literature exam, literatures in English, CAPE exam, that is, it means that you're on the same level, right? If you did your IA, you're on the same level. But what will set you apart from the regular candidate is not only coming here, but the fact that you're now able to understand that it's not just past papers, you have other resources and you have other extra textual information that you must integrate into your essays, right? Now, here are 3 other points that you can use to help you. The significance of the title. Why is the title, right? And this can be used as a point in your essay, but if you understand why the author chose this title, it can probably propel you in getting a better grade, right? Because then in understanding the title, you go way in depth of understanding what was in the author's mind when he or she chose this narrative. Then the social issues attacked in the text. So by understanding what was happening during the time the author wrote, then you can link that to whatever question you have, because then you'll have a lot of information to add to your body paragraphs, right? And finally, themes versus narrative techniques. Now, we don't want to mix up. I had a classmate when I was doing CAPE, and this is something that I've recognized is common. I had a classmate who kind of mixed up themes with narrative techniques. Know that themes are like religion, love and family relationships, etc. But the narrative techniques are your irony, your satire, your point of view, all of that. So know the difference between those. And I hope you guys are taking some notes. And then let's talk about our conclusion, right? So we talked about the introduction, we talked about the body paragraphs, and now we're going to discuss the conclusions. So for conclusions, here's it. You want to be sure that throughout all the essay, you are writing in present tense. And honestly, this is me concluding everything in addition to talking about the conclusion, right? You want to make sure that you have precise diction and you want it to be error-free. So when you write your conclusion or you finish writing your conclusion, you look over, maybe for just like 45 seconds. Like I said, read it fast because you might not have time. Or you can wait until you finish, but probably when you wait until you finish, the exam probably finish and you have no more time. Right after you finish writing your essay, read it over for like 45 seconds. Just use your pen and track it and read it very fast. Then we'll get into this part of the presentation. So paper 1. I only have one slide on paper 1, and this is the reason. Paper 1 can be the hardest part of your exam. Here's why, because you neglect it. If you neglect the fact that you have paper 1, you probably wrote out your heart in paper 2, and you lose all of those marks because you did not pay attention to paper 1. So when you're doing or when you're practicing or studying for your paper 1, you want to know all the literary terms that I mentioned before that you're supposed to have. Stuff like your metaphor, meter, octave, ode, paradox, parody, the resolution, the rhythm. You want to know the meaning of all of those. And if you don't know them, have an idea of what there is. the climax, the dissonance, the epigram, all of those things, because they will ask you some questions. And I want you guys to ask me questions now. We're gonna go through some past papers quickly. Any questions? Any concerns so far? Anything you want me to go over? Okay. All right. So did you guys understand everything that was said just now? Did you guys take notes? Do you guys need to go back on any slides? Because you're not coming back to this. Okay, perfect. Good. Well, Kimoy, it won't be 5%. I guarantee you, if you understand everything. What I'm going to do, guys, is also send you some links that I have to help you in preparing for your exams. I know it's like close to a week away, but it can actually help you. Also, one more thing. When you go into the exam, breathe first. Take your time and breathe. You can look at the paper for 30 seconds, decide what you want to do, but don't rush it. Decide what you want to do first and then write points in each section first, for each section first, I should say. So write your points, and then after you've written your points, then you'll have an idea of what you wanted to talk about the moment you saw the question. Because here's the idea. If you go into the exam and you start prose or you start poetry or you even start with drama, you may not remember what you thought about when you just saw the question. So you can use the first 5 minutes of the exam. It won't kill you, to just prepare what you need to say or what you'd like to say for your essays. All right. We're gonna go to some past papers. I want us to take a break first. We're not at 4 o'clock yet, but we're gonna come back at 4 o'clock and we're gonna go through a few past papers together. All right, guys. So take 8 minutes and then we'll be back. Okay. Hi guys, we're back. Welcome back. Everybody's here. All right, everybody, you can send a thumbs up if you're here in the chat. Yes, and one. Everyone here? Can you all hear me? Okay. All right, let's go. Paper 2, 2017 paper. It's a bit old, but still relevant because it has so much in store for us. Let's talk about these things. Hold on. Give me a second. Is this the wrong paper? I think this is the wrong one. Hold on. 1 minute. It seems like it's the wrong paper. All right, guys, let's go to the 2020 paper. Sorry about that. Okay, let's go. The first question. No, let's talk about this. Would anybody like to read the question? Kamar, can you read for us, please? Kamar. Kamar isn't here. Joseph, can you read for us, please?
Okay. Module 1, drama. Disguise is essential to the dramatic impact of taming of the shrew. No other features of drama are important. Discuss the extent to which you agree with this statement. Or number 2, it is primarily through the use of stage conduct that the dramatist is able to explore the relationship between leadership and identity in Richard II. Discuss the extent to which this statement is a fair assessment of Richard II.
Okay, thanks, Joseph. So, guys, either one is fine because either one seems simple. But what I want you to understand is some elements of the questions that they'll ask you. So, for example, in question 1, you are charged to agree or disagree or both, because it's to an extent that you would have to do that, right? But in doing so, you'll have to use some themes or techniques, rather, I should say techniques, some dramatic techniques to actually outline whether or not disguise is essential to the dramatic impact of the play or not, because it really doesn't have to, right? So what are some other features of drama that we can highlight? Can you guys type that in the chat, please? Other features of drama that we can actually highlight. Nobody? No man. No, I feel like we're at 5%. No, this is not cool. Features, dramatic impact. Come on, drama, how it work. You have a side set, dramatic effect, stage directions, the monologue. I mean, juxtaposition of scenes. Yes. The plot is always something. Please don't use the same techniques of module 1 with module 3, for example. Don't do that. Guys, there are so many different ones. Come on, what can you use? Spectacle. You see? Joseph understand. No, I know why Joseph feels like he's at 85%. Because he answers. At least answer. Just answer. So there are so many other things that you can add. It's not just disguise, but if you want to, if you choose to, because it's such a central theme in this particular play, then of course, be free to do that as much as you want. You have other stage conventions like the lighting, the sound effects, the movement, which would of course apply to question 2. You want to highlight stuff like the backdrop or the props or the lighting. I mean, those are spectacles. Costume, lighting, sound effects, and movement are spectacles. But other stuff like the music and the dance, the prologue, epilogue, if there is any, the dramatic unities. Guys, come on. How the stage is set up, all of that, right? Also, I forgot about this. You guys have persons who would have written on the text, like persons who would have critiqued it. You guys have that, right? You have stuff like that? Yes or no? Type it in the chat, please. Critiques of the text. No? What? That doesn't sound good. Okay, so there are different persons who would have critiqued the material. Criticized. Harold Bloom. Yes. So there are different persons who would have criticized the material that the author has written, the play or the novel, whatever it is. You want to find those persons who would have done that. I'm gonna see if I find any and send them to you, because honestly, that's not good to have. If you have those and you can quote them and you can add them, you can actually use them, Joseph, as references as well. So for example, you want to talk about Richard III, you can talk about somebody who has criticized the play. I'm gonna see what I can get. Although nothing is promised, I did delete a lot of them from off of my phone when I decided that I was going to not be interested in Kate Patricia's in English anymore, but that has passed. Let's continue. Okay, question 3. Like I said, you already know everything that I would have told you based on everything I've said. You know how to write your introduction, you know how to write so far. Question 1, while disguise is central, there are other features that are important. Okay, Zoe, that's good. It's okay to stay neutral. So you can, what are the other features that you would add, Zoe? What would you add? In addition to disguise, what else would you add? Zoe, what else would you add other than disguise? Think about it. Is it set? Is it costume? Is it a monologue? Is it an aside? Is it plot? I have some here from Russ MacDonald. So Russ MacDonald defines comedy as a literary structure, be it drama or novel or film, that moves toward a happy ending and implies a positive understanding of human experience. Comedy moves from confusion to order, from ignorance to understanding, from law to liberty, from happiness to satisfaction, from separation to union, from bareness to fertility, from singleness to marriage, from two to one. You have Stephanie Arnold, you have other people who would have critiqued many of these things, right? The traditions, the customs, the beliefs, those are stuff that you want to point out as well. All right, Zoe. So let's go into section 2. I think section 3 is my favorite, but let's do B. Sorry. Okay, here we go. So part B. No, stop it. Sorry. It's kind of hard to move this mouse. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So here we have 2 more questions for part 2, module 2. Can we have another reader read these questions, please? This one will be fun. Wait, yeah, okay. Anybody else read these questions, please? Cleon, can go ahead.
So either an appreciation of poetry depends on the range of poetic techniques used in representing the natural landscape, with reference to at least 3 poems by one British American or post-colonial poet that you have studied, discuss the validity of this statement, or the poetic's enduring concern for humanity shapes and structural composition of the poetry, with reference to at least 3 poems by one British, American, or post-colonial poet that you have studied, discuss the extent to which the statement represents your encounter with poetry.
All right, so which one would you choose, Chanel? Chanel, which one would you choose? Okay, Chanel is choosing the first one. An appreciation of poetry depends on the range of poetic techniques used in representing the natural landscape. That's actually a nice quote. So what 3 poems are you thinking about, Chanel? Let me hear them. What 3 poems? And what 3 techniques, poetic techniques? Because, you know, you have to have 3. So let's talk about this. Cleon, are there any poetic techniques that you think would be relevant to this specific question? You can type it in the chat as well. It's the same techniques to everything else, Cleon. Listen, so when it comes down to poetry, structure is important, the way they structure it physically, right? So you want to think about, how does the poem look? Is the poem long? Is it short? Does it have space in between? The physical characteristic of a poem, it doesn't matter as much as the, for example, let's say we have a novel, right? Purple Hibiscus, just an example. It's separated in 3 different parts. The fact that the novel is structured that way, it gives you a basic understanding of what is happening, and it's more chronological in how the story is ordered. That is something that you can really write on. You can deepen your thoughts by just looking at the structure of the novel itself. In the same breath, when it comes on to poetry, when you look at how a poem is structured, are they all left aligned? Is it in the center? Is it that some lines, is the meter long? Is it short? What happens? And if you don't know a lot about poetic techniques, you need to really, really get into studying that, because trust me, it's one of the most in-depth, I should say, in-depth areas of literature. So you want to understand sonnets, okay? What about sonnets? Language, diction, biblical allusion, figurative language for question 4. Chanel, diction, meter, rhyme. All right, not bad. Yeah, you can, but diction is usually associated with module 3 more. You can use it, but it's usually associated with module 3 more. You want to, the meter and the rhyme can work definitely because those are specific poetic techniques. Won't count it out for the diction, but remember you want to keep it within a certain range, which is poetry. So let me get some and tell you guys. All right, so you have the delineation, you know, what type of line is it? Is that end stop? Does it run on? Does it stop with a comma? Stuff like that. The rhyme, as Chanel said in the chat, we have the stanzas. How are the stanzas aligned? So what I'm saying, Cleon, is the structure is very important. Is it a masculine rhyme? Does it have one syllable, like bold and cold? Is it a feminine rhyme where the rhyme is not as strong, it's like fluid, or like for example, weaving and leaving, those are feminine rhymes. Is it an I rhyme? How is it spelled? Are the words spelled alike? Is it a half rhyme? How does the poem flow? What's the rhythm of it, right? The meter, the stress syllable, what is stress? Where is there a pause? Stuff like that. The mood, the tone, and yes, the diction is actually very good, but you want to specifically go in when it comes on to poetic techniques, and you want to talk about literary devices as well. Literary devices are poetic techniques. So for example, here's something that you can actually use as an advantage, Cleon. So you have literary devices as a poetic technique, but you might have different literary devices that are within the poem. So for example, you have simile in the poem, you have onomatopoeia, you have alliteration, you have metaphor. Literary devices are just one technique, but because you would have had so many in the poem, you have a lot to write on. And remember to link it to this quote, which says, an appreciation of poetry depends on the range of poetic techniques used in representing the natural landscape. And be sure to talk about the natural landscape in this, right? Then we have other poetic techniques like your euphemism, pun, the metonymy, stuff like that. Guys, this is so fun, isn't it? Right? So when we talk about the form of a poem, I think Joseph said sonnets. The form of a poem is a bit different. So the poem can take a form of a Shakespearean poem, which is kind of like a couplet with a quatrain or 3 quatrains actually. So it's like 4 lines, three paragraphs with 4 lines each, and then a couplet at the end. So it's basically 12 and 2, 14 lines overall. And you can have like an Italian or Petrarchan sonnet, you know, that's with the octave and the sestet. You have a ballad, you have a lyric. These are different forms of poetry. Also, imagery. Remember, imagery, guys, you can use it as a poetic technique. You can use paradox, you can use oxymoron, like I said before. You can use visual imagery. Oh my gosh, visual imagery is amazing. You have auditory, you have olfactory, you have tactile. Guys, is this anything that you are aware of in any way, shape, or form? Can you type that in the chat, please? Yes, guys. All right. So Joseph was saying the types of imagery. Yeah, we have a group, Ricardo. When we finish, we can talk about it. But let's just continue talking about this section or this module. So guys, there are so many that you can utilize, and I hope that you're making notes of them too. So you want to be able to highlight all of those. And yes, the types of imagery. So in summary, yes, Chanel, those aren't bad. What are some of the poems that we can use for this question, guys? Can you just type some of them? Yeah. Dulce. Dulce is a classic. Anybody else? Yeah, man. Yeah, all right, let's go. Yeah, man. So you want to be able to highlight the poems. Yes, keep going as much as possible. What about anthem for doomed youths? Yeah, okay, Zoe, you got it. Perfect. But don't forget, you don't want to actually miss the point. Don't miss the fact that this is the question. The question says, used in representing the natural landscape. So you want to highlight how natural it is. So for example, in futility, with lines 8 to 11, there's a view that God has the ability to and has awoken seeds. So you have the biblical allusion there when it comes on to futility. The sun brings things to life on earth. It's asking why God can't bring this man to life. So you want to be able to link that to the natural landscape question that they would have asked you before. That's exactly what you want. Don't forget that. That's what you want, right? All right, guys. So I'm just gonna give you some tips for poetry as well. Give me a second. Yeah. So you want to know rhyme, you want to know rhythm, lineation, diction, tone, mood. You want to know your literary devices, like your simile, metaphor, alliteration, onomatopoeia, imagery, symbolism, hyperbole, euphemism, pun, metonymy, juxtaposition, and irony. You want to know the forms of poetry. So forms are like ballad, lyric, terza rima, blank verse, villanelle, sonnet, ode, dramatic monologue, free verse. Those are the things that you want to know, right? So let's go into section 3 or module 3. Section C, I should say. All right. So I'll read this one. Either with reference to one Caribbean and one British or American post-colonial work of fiction that you've studied, discuss ways in which writers use narrative techniques to explore the issue of alienation, or in their exploration of social change, writers depend primarily on the element of point of view. With reference to one Caribbean and one British, American, or post-colonial work of fiction that you've studied, discuss the extent to which you agree with this statement. All right, so we can either talk about narrative techniques to describe or explore alienation, or we can talk about point of view to describe social change. So both of these questions are golden because not only do they say that, you want to use narrative techniques, but they also give you a way in which you can express the narrative technique. So either you're going to use alienation or social change, right? And point of view is one of the primary elements that you can use for social change. So what question are we picking, 5 or 6? You can type the number 5 or 6 in the chat and then we can talk about it. 5 or 6, guys, 5 or 6. All right, Zoe said 6. Kimon says 6. 6 seems easier. All right, let's do 6. Let's do 6. social change, writers depend primarily on the element of point of view. So how are we going to start that? You want a relevant attention, get everyone something to talk about it. So let's say I was doing an essay like this. What I'd start with is, for the past 3 decades, there have been massive social changes in the world or across the globe. And I'd probably put in some examples like the rise of globalization, the rise of feminism. I just, kick in some stuff there, right? And what I do specifically is talk about social change that's in the book already, linking it back to my introduction. Cool? So it says writers depend primarily on the element of point of view. What I then say is there has been a long-standing debate about which particular narrative techniques writers depend on when it comes on to exploring social change. Then I'd go into this. I'd say the element of point of view has been one of the more popular or most popular narrative techniques that have been utilized. However, point of view, in addition to characterization and what else can I use? Characterization and give me something else. Setting, yes, yeah. However, point of view, in addition to characterization and setting, have been proven to highlight the exploration of social change more than just point of view itself, right? And then we go into it because we just do our thesis, right? No, we not just do our thesis. So what we are gonna say now is, in the books, Purple Hibiscus or in the novels, Purple Hibiscus by Chimamanda Adichie, because remember we're supposed to name the title of the book and we're supposed to state the author's name in the introduction. That's why I'm gonna go back. I forgot about those. So in the novels Purple Hibiscus by Chimamanda Adichie and Aunt Jen by, who wrote Aunt Jen again? Paulette Ramsey? By Paulette Ramsey, we clearly see how point of view pairs with characterization and setting to effectively explore the issues of social change, right? And then we get into it. First topic sentence. The element of point of view has been crucial in understanding changes of society, right? Then you start and you go into it and you talk about the point of view of what the girl name? Guys, I want while since me know the literatures in English, so just bear with me. Let me find her name. Kambili. Yes. As some know say you are gonna pass away. You remember the girl name. Sorry. It's more than that, but trust me. Yes, Kambili has done this, and utilizing the point of view of Kambili underscores the essence of the childlike perspective, which emphasizes the innocence of this and that. And you want to go in it. Sometimes when you are right, I know when you guys are in the exam, you're going to be writing and you're going to feel it. Like you can feel the passion that flows through your brain to your hands from the pen and onto the paper. So when you're writing and you feel that, and you just start write fast, because you don't have much time. A section C, there's 40 minutes left, and you want to get all your 3 points across, right? So you talk about how the perspective of Kambili makes sure that the social change is understood to a greater measure, because then by utilizing the point of view of a child, Adichie is able to outline issues that adults would have a biased view on, for example. And when you talk about Sunshine and Aunt Jen, I remember Aunt Jen because, oh my gosh, that was such a great book. Yeah. Sorry. So when you remember Sunshine and Aunt Jen, you can talk about how also the perspective of a child's perspective actually effectively conveys what's going on, because then the child doesn't really have a bias, all of that. And you talk about characterization why it's important that the child is in a home wherever the person is, and who are the persons that are around the child. Why does that highlight the social issue more than point of view does? Is it because the child is able to rely on these persons? Is it because these other characters add to the measure of social change that's happening? What does it, and what really brings out that idea of social change? When her dad comes in, what makes it different from when her mother wasn't there before? Why is her mommy even so far? Well, that would come in with setting. Why is her mommy not even there? What's the change that's being highlighted through the migration? For the recent papers, you have to speak about 2 prose fictions. Yes, Cleon, for all papers, you speak about 2. It says here, it says at 20. I think it's 2020, but it says 2016 at the bottom. Yeah, I think you have to, because the question would ask you, question 6 and question 5 both says, do everyone work with form and content? Form is important, content is too, but you can choose what you work with, what is comfortable for you to work with. And let me tell you something, guys. You see, as much as it's easy for you to memorize a certain element of maybe poetry or an element of prose fiction, do not fit any question into what you already know. Know enough so that what you know can be fit, or you can fit that into a question. So don't just study point of view, setting and characterization, and then, okay, whatever question you get, you go use those techniques. No. Know at least 6 techniques, maybe 7 if you can actually cram all that in your brain. Know enough so that if you get a question, you can draw on any one of those 6. You don't want to have 3. You only know you only know rhyme, you know meter, and you know tone. So whatever question you get, you're going to apply that question to what you know. Don't do that. No mood, no diction, no rhythm, right? No more poetic elements or elements of poetry. No some literary devices, right? And then use those devices and apply it to the question, right? Okay, so basically, as we were talking about this, all I was saying is you want to be sure that you are adding enough information and you're applying. And while you're doing this, guys, remember that you have other persons who would have critiqued the text. You have some people who would have called the book beautiful or brilliant, or some people would have quoted some stuff from the book, and you want to add those as well. If you are a nerd, and I'll say this because sometimes it is true, you can talk about the page that the specific thing is on, but you don't have to. You would have to memorize the book literally back and front to talk about all of these things. But if you have any, and if you have quotes, it's important that you add quotes as well. That's your example that you'd be using. All right. Yes, that is a stretch. That is a great stretch, Joseph. But you have persons who can memorize. Yeah, you have persons who can memorize the page of the book on page 256. And here's why that doesn't work, because there are different versions of the book. So it can be 256 page 256 for your book, but not for the marker's book. So you don't want to do that. So we can use extra tech. Yeah, of course. You're supposed to recall though. You're supposed to use critiques in everything. Yeah. For real. Yeah, I'm serious. Yes. So anybody who would have critiqued it, know at least 3 and apply what they would have done or said. All right, so here's how you can work smart. So I told you already to know 6 elements, right? 6 techniques, and no 6 techniques and no 6 themes, for example. For all of that, sorry, I only think it was supposed to, no, use it in everything. So if you know all of that, and then for everything that you know like a quote that somebody said about this specific thing in relation to the book, a critique that somebody made, and you can write them down. I used to write them down in my literature book. So what I do is, for example, I'd say, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna know the forms, I'm gonna know the rhyme, I'm gonna know the literary devices, I'm gonna know the monologue. Wait, no, that's not poetry. I'm gonna know the meter, delineation, and the mood, right? For every one of those that I know about them in specific poems. I know how they flow with some poems. I'll also know critiques for each one of those. So you want to be able to have those critiques as well, right? And you add it. So that's basically it when it comes on to section C. We just did A, B, and C. Anyone has any questions about anything in terms of paper 2 that we're doing on May 8th? Any questions?
Miss,
I'm here. Yeah, go ahead.
Miss, say, example, if we have, we can write the name of the critics, in prose, section that I said. So when writing essay, we should write, the names, of the
Critics, yeah. It's supposed to, and if, for example, it slips your mind while you're in the exam, you can say, it has been argued. Does that seem fair?
Yes, Miss.
Okay, so you can say it can be argued, or there has been an ongoing debate. You can use phrases like that. And you can say critics have argued too. Zoe, no, not gonna send you anything that is already done. I know that you guys can do it. And I'm actually sending you references. I sent you like a list of stuff in the group where you can find stuff like that. So yeah. What you need to understand already is that there is no perfect essay, right? You might have persons who come close, but there is no one that gets 40 out of 40 in an essay. Nobody. And even if they were close, some will have to come off. There is no perfect essay. Therefore, everybody is on the same level. No, we're not writing an essay together today. I'm just giving you tips. What I want you guys to understand is that it's not just about the writing of the essay, it's about the knowledge and the application of that knowledge. Is it knowledge, application, and something else that might put me for? I really wanted you guys to understand what is required of you. What is required of you. Based on that, you can go back to the drawing board, you can create a strategy for how you're going to study, and then you're going to actually do that work and go in the exam and do it. So all of this that I've told you today, basically, it's just for you to either change the strategy of how you're preparing or continue to do well and just add on stuff. So small stuff like underlining the title of the novel or the play, that will give you extra marks. Small stuff like making sure you have a title paragraph, you have an ending paragraph, and a title sentence, I should say, a topic sentence for each paragraph, and then a sentence at the end of that paragraph, which then it kind of envelopes, or it kind of closes the paragraph well, having transitional phrases or words. Those are the things that will help you in writing your essays. And I have sent the links, like I said. When I add Ricardo to the group, I'll resend the links. So you guys have that at your disposal, and there are past papers in that chat too. So don't leave it up to the past papers, don't leave it up to the reports. Remember, you need to get the critiques, and you can watch some of the YouTube videos. For example, Chimamanda Adichie's TikTok, that's actually very good. I've seen where teachers and lecturers have used that all across the board. They've used it in secondary and tertiary level education, because it's very important to understand what Chimamanda said in her TED Talk. There are other resources like persons who discuss the book or persons who discuss the authors, interviews with the authors as well, which are just as effective as the knowledge of the book itself. Because when you have an in-depth understanding of everything, when it comes on to the specific novel, it will definitely help you in writing an essay about anything. Understanding when the author was born, understanding who the author grew up with, it magnifies what your writing looks like, because then in your understanding, you have the knowledge that you need. You are literally equipped with all the knowledge to write on literally anything that comes your way. So let's talk about the exploration of social change. So writers always talk about how society is changing. Why was it important for Adichie to explore all the social change that was going on around her? Right. She went to university in Nigeria. She was literally around everything that was happening. During the time that she went to university there, or no, she actually went to university in America. During the time that she went to university, a lot of persons didn't expect that she would have been how she was. And that's just that. By identifying that, you can literally state in your essay that the social change which was happening in this book, or the social change that was explored in this book, was the issue of discovering who you are, the issue of accepting people for who they are, the issue of being equal and fair to people, having equity. So literally knowing everything other than the book helps. Trust me, it does. All right, give me a minute, guys. One more thing, Zoe, I don't know if you have the syllabus, but on the CXC store, the syllabus is free, right? CXC.com, the syllabus is free in the CXC store. The syllabus for every subject is free. In the syllabus, at the bottom of the syllabus, there is a report. There's a sample essay and there's a report of the essay, right? The sample essay outlines a lot of things based on a question that they would have provided. And that report states whether the person who wrote the essay was right or wrong. So you literally have all you need. I don't need to give you an essay. You literally have it. You just have to look for it. Cool? See them here? Look at this. I see them syllabus, look here. In Shakespearean comedies, men and women, literally, I am literally still in the syllabus. All I did was scroll down. Look on it. Unit 1, paper 2, key. Yes, it's true. Them have it. Them, we don't need to give you nothing. It's already there. Them talk about it, them highlight it, them put it in a bold, them put it what you did it. See the candidates who agree may discuss the following. Catherine Shue's statements. You see, them literally tell you what to write based on the question that they have asked. Question 2, they give you the question again, and then them tell you, regardless of the approach taken to this, candidates should bear the following in mind. There is nothing that I can give you that is not already on any website or free on Google. Just type it in the search engine. All right, see there, you don't need it. You really don't. And sometimes when you think you do, that's when you don't. Because the key, you see, just like how them have the answer for the multiple choice right here, so them have the answer for the questions and what we just asked. So let's try section B. Section B's answers for the same question that we just did. Here's the key for it. The answer, the paper. Section, it would be question 3. Right, that's question 1. No, they only answer question 2. Hold on. Question 1, disguise. Question 2. Hold on. Okay, let's just do this because my computer is moving all over the place. So remember we talked about the stage conventions and Joseph did so we can use it. Here it is. Characterization. Them literally answer the question and they tell you how to answer. The stage props and spectacles, like what Joseph did say. They're literally all there. They just put it out there for you. All right, I want us to do paper 1 before we go, because we're leaving at 5. Let's do this quickly. How about we do paper one? I will send our answers in the group. I can send you guys. Do you think I should send you a paper one and you answer and then I give you like the answers? You want to do that? Or I send you 2 paper ones and you give me okay, all right, good. So what I'll do is I'm going to send you 3 papers for paper one, and then I'm going to get the answers and give them to you. So I'll send them today and I'll give you the answers like Monday, because I'm pretty sure you're going to be studying. And I'm sure this is not the only exam you have. So I can send you them today. I'll go find some of them. All right, any more questions, guys?
Miss, how can I be added to that group, Miss?
I'm gonna send the link to the group in the chat. Remember I said I'd do it after. Hold on, Ricardo. Let me find it.
Miss, and you said we can find this information on CSEC website. Like we're on CSEC website. I said we can find this information.
It's not the website. I said you can find it on the store. The CXC store. You go into the CXC store and you search for your syllabus. Your syllabus has past papers. It has your your objectives, and in the bottom of the syllabus, it has the answers to past paper questions, and it has a report that the teachers would have given after they've marked the exams. So you can read those and see what was missing from other candidates' papers, and you can correct it with your writing, sorry. I'm getting the link for the group. All right, guys. Recall the link is going to be sent in the chat. When you get it, you can click on it. That curve meet true for K. Or what is it? Or what you get. Here's the thing. I don't work at CXC, I don't know. But let me tell you what I do know. I do know that over 7,000 students cannot possibly get a 1 or a 2 or a 3. So, yes, it's true. Once a certain amount gets a certain amount, that's it. So depending on who gets the highest grade, that's how it's graded. Here's the link in the chat, Ricardo. So for example, if everybody gets less than 90, who got in their 80s and their 70s, maybe 75 and above, will get a 1, and who got probably 60s, 75 will get a 2, etc., etc. But yeah, everybody cannot get a 1, 2, or 3. Some people have to get 4 and 5. Because you see, here's the thing. If you're charged to critically assess something or to write a paper that is advanced, and everybody literally write so bad that nobody can get a 1, that's sad. But somebody has to get a 1. At least one person has to get a 1. So yeah, it just might be marked and occur. All right, guys. So I hope you join the group soon, Ricardo, because I'm going to resend the links that I sent. Okay, perfect. All right, great, guys. So I'm resending the links now to the group, and you can look at those, read them over tonight, and I'm going to send you some past papers to do, and then I send the past paper answers like 2 days after. So you can look it over, you can sleep on it, you can change your answers. And based on that, when you get the correct answers, you'll know. But we have to talk about the correct answers and why it is correct, because it's not just one thing to memorize it. Even if you want to memorize it, it's not good, because then you wouldn't have learned anything. You just swat something. And then, because you're called to be analytical as literature and English students, it really would mean that you're like, you know, when you apply for a job and you say you're skilled in languages, you're like a level 4 French student, knowing well that you only know the words bonjour and au revoir. That it's like that when you go in the exam and SWAT. Because then you come out and you don't know nothing, and you have on your resume that you did Cape Literatures in English. People are gonna know, like, okay, if you did late, then that means you're probably analytical, and you know you can assess stuff, and you make like a decision at work that looks very stupid. Yeah, you look like the person who said they did level 4 French and they only know hi and bye. All right, guys, any more questions? Zoe, is everything understood? Chanel, Cleon, everything's understood based on what we've done today? Okay, good. Would you guys like me to send the presentation that I did to you? Okay. All right, so I'll send the presentation as well. Please watch the YouTube video about studying for exams. That's my YouTube video that I made when I was doing CAPE. The tips are pretty great, like staying calm. It's important to stay calm. And don't let anybody tell you that if you don't know it already, you're not going to know it now, because that's not true. Just try to do your best, because that is really and truly good enough. And I'll say this finally, don't stress over this. Do not stress over this. Life is so much more than a grade. I mean, of course, you want to advance to the next level, but don't stress over it. Be calm. Try to garner as much information as you can and go in there and do what you can do. Breathe and just do what you can do. That's all you can do, what you can do. All right, guys. Okay, guys, we're gonna wrap up now. Thanks so much for coming. Like I said, I'd share the presentation that I did today, and I will share the link to some other stuff. So thanks for coming, guys. Bye. Have a great rest of the day. Happy studying. Thank you, Zoe. Yes, Joseph, happy. You're welcome.